everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are so excited to present our capstone project, Plant Base. Before we dig any deeper, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Ashley Edmunds. I graduated from the University of South Carolina with a Bachelor of Science in Public Health. I spent the last 2 years working on public health research studies, and from those experiences, I worked with several public health databases and several websites to help gather information for those studies. And from there, I worked with them enough to become curious to learn what skills were necessary to create these websites. And I started Googling and learning on my own, and then I found Dev10.
Good morning. My name is Kayti Wiita. I got my Bachelor's of Science at the University of West London in Applied Sound Engineering. And over the last few years, I've actually been working as a sound technician for Royal Caribbean Cruises. And COVID-19 brought that industry to a halt, and I don't do well with sitting nothing and doing absolutely nothing. So I decided to take that time and take some Code Academy and Udemy courses for Java, and I fell in love with the language. And so I applied to Dev10, and here I am.
My name is Rachel Cuccia, and I graduated about a year ago with my Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics from Sam Houston State University back in Texas. Over the past year, I worked as a STEM Academy instructor for teaching elementary age school students coding as early as kindergarten. So they learned from little code games all the way through to Python and Java introductory levels for some of the older elementary age students. And I figured if they can do it, I definitely can too. So I decided to seek out more information on learning more advanced skills, and I ran into Dev10, and it's been great ever since.
So a little bit about our application. Plant-Base is a social media platform specifically made for the plant community. Users are able to show off their plants and learn from others on this easy-to-use platform.
So digging into the technical requirements a little bit, we manage 10 database tables that are independent concepts. All are using MySQL for the database. Our user interface is also secured by roles, including admin and user. And we created a full test suite that covers the domain and data layers of the REST API. For stretch goals, we chose to deploy to the cloud, which required Dockerizing containers for the database, the API, and the React application, and then composing that image and deploying to Microsoft Azure. We also chose to use Lombok, which is a Java productivity library, which uses annotations rather than writing out full getters and setters. So it just cleans up the model a little bit more. For the technologies, we used IntelliJ as our IDE, and we created Maven Java products and Maven Java projects. And we used Mockito for testing. Our database, like I mentioned earlier, uses MySQL, and we use the MySQL Workbench. We also use Docker and Ubuntu, and Spring Boot and Spring MVC along with JDBC template in order to create that web security and web application. We also use JUnit testing and Lombok. For our front end, we used a combination of Bootstrap CSS framework along with custom CSS stylings. We also then used Visual Studio Code, React, Fetch APIs, and we have token-based security. We also used GitHub for version control and GitHub issues for our time management. So breaking down our database a little bit, we have a total of 10 tables, including one bridge table. So the tables include the planter, which has all the information for the users for their first name, last name, and email address. And then from there, they also have their own profiles, which are My Gardens. So that includes a user photo along with a bio. We also have a garden, which is kind of a news feed that you'd have on like Facebook. And there's also then roles, like I said, admin and user. Each planter then also has plants and subplant profiles. So we have a table that covers all the information, including their name, their gotcha date, and their plant type. And then you can then add posts and replies. So each of those then have captions and then photos, you can like them. And they also have then date time posted. With our stretch goal of deploying to the cloud, rather than using a separate API for username and password, we chose to incorporate 3 new tables, which were app user, app role, and then the bridge table app user role, in order to secure those usernames and passwords and making sure that those were unique for each user.
As for our team's successes and obstacles, we had huge success in planning and time management. If we weren't on track for our schedule during the course of the past 2 weeks, we were probably ahead. And another success we had was testing. We got very creepingly close to 100% JUnit testing. So that's definitely something we're proud of. Another thing we were great with was collaborating and troubleshooting throughout the course of the 2 weeks to make sure that we were communicating well and helping each other work through any bugs or issues we ran into. Another success that we're pretty proud of is that we were able to deploy to the cloud and make our application friendly on mobile devices as well, including the styling and design. We were really happy with how everything turned out, including both computer screens and mobile friendly devices. And then on to our obstacles. Our obstacles really came from the new technologies we learned to use, including deploying to the cloud and the security that came along with that. Since that wasn't something that was covered in our lessons, it took some more research and trial and error to get used to. Along with GitHub branches, this was our first time experiencing using something like that so that we could all be contributing to code at the same time. So that was just something that was rocky in the beginning, but ultimately we were able to get all of these things good and well used. And now let's move on to our demo. Since we did deploy to the cloud, we have our link right here. So I'm just gonna take a click on that. And when we route to our website, this is our home page. So we see a nice little welcome message with a cute little custom photo and our login screen. I'm going to go ahead and register a new user to show how that works. So I'm going to say my name is Tom Nook, so my username is going to be tnook. My password is going to be required to be 8 characters long with at least 1 number and 1 special character. So I'll put that in there. My first name, Tom, last name, Nook, and my garden name is going to be Nook's Friend. As for my email, it's going to be tnook@gmail.com. I register. I'm going to go ahead and save those credentials so I can just click here and log in. When we log in, it brings us to this garden page, which is our news feed. And we can see all these posts that people have made in the past. So we'll save that bit for later, and I'm going to go straight into my garden, which is our user's profile. So when we come here, it's quite empty at first, but we can go in and make some edits. I'm going to say the coolest garden ever. And I can grab a photo real quick from here and just copy paste that into this input. I click edit, it tells me it's successful, and I can route back and see that those changes have been made. Now down at the bottom is where we have a list of plants for our users. So I can click here to add a plant, and I think I want to add a eucalyptus, and I'm going to name it Bob. So plant type eucalyptus. Description, I'm pretty sure these are green. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my photo of that plant and put that into my form. I'm going to say it happened today. I got this plant today. So when I add, it pops up down here as a nice little card in my plant list. And from there, I can actually click on this plant to go further into the plant sub-profile, which we call a plant profile. From here, I can edit, delete, as well as see all of these plants related posts. So from here, I'm going to make a little edit. Maybe I didn't actually get this today. I think I actually got it Saturday. So I can make that edit. And that's all good. There we go. And we can see that edit was made there. Just took a little bit longer. So now I'm going to go ahead and route back to our garden. And Katie's going to walk us through posts and replies.
So with the posts, you can see the picture, you can see the like count, you can actually add a like yourself if you like the photo. And there's also then replies that you can add if you want to add some help or you just want to say, hey, look, it's really pretty. You can add that functionality. And then it pops up right there and hey, you know what, you decide actually, I don't like the way that I said that. You can go back and can edit your own personal reply. But it is important to note that you can't actually go in and edit other people's replies because that's not your profile. So say, you know what, actually, I don't want to comment on this photo. I don't think I have anything good to say. You can delete that comment you just put in. You can then also add your own personal posts. So we added two different things here. We allowed for the user to add a post specifically about their own plant. However, we also then wanted to open it up to be able to start a forum. So if you wanted none, you could select none and it will pop up, but I think we want to show off Bob. So let's throw in a new photo of Bob. And from there, just like the same old, the same reply, you can edit, you can delete, you can like, all that same functionality. Another thing that we've added here is you can actually select users' profiles by selecting their name. And you can also select them, you can select the specific plants through their plant profile name. And that will bring you to that same information that we saw. And now you can see the related posts about it.
And now we'll talk a little bit about the user's account with Ashley.
Yeah, so from that user drop-down menu, you can see users are able to edit their account information. That information was provided from whenever they registered. You can either choose to change one field or all fields, and then we do require that the user re-enters their password. So whenever we go back, we can see that those changes were updated. And then from there, if you decide that you are not the planter that you thought you were, you can go ahead and delete your account. And as you can see, if we try and log in again, we're going to get a login failed message. And now we're going to head into our admin account. Our admin, they have the same functionality as users, but they can edit user posts, they can delete user posts if anything becomes inappropriate on the website or doesn't follow any of our anything that we would want others to see.
We can go ahead and delete this beef because that doesn't fit in with our plant-based guidelines. We're going to delete that.
You can also head into users' own profiles and edit anything that may be inappropriate in there. Plants as well.
And then that concludes our demo. So we can go ahead and log out from there. And we'll switch back to our presentation. Any questions?
Excellent job, you guys. And congratulations on getting it deployed. My first question when I hear a group has deployed it is, did you send the link to your family and friends so they could see your work yet?
100%.
Yes.
I sent it to my family. So a couple posts on our website are from my sister and from my mom.
Yes,
I love that. That is so fun. You got to get it out there. Show them what you've done. Hopefully they didn't have any inappropriate posts yet.
No, just some fun little puns.
I love it. So from Kyle, he's wondering, what would you say was the biggest accomplishment for your team over the last 2 weeks?
I love that we got it deployed to the cloud. I think towards the end, or I wouldn't say it was a team effort. Kayti kind of chugged that train along, but it was so great to see that we got it up there and working.
It was incredibly rewarding because it just felt so real rather than running all the different, running VS Code, running IntelliJ, running MySQL Workbench. we could just click on the link and it was right there. And it was the coolest feeling ever. I think all of us were so stoked about that.
Yes, and going along with that, I think figuring out how to make the security work along with deploying to the cloud was a big challenge for us to figure out and rearrange our original database tables to incorporate all of that. So getting that together with the rest of the cloud deployment was a huge accomplishment.
Absolutely. And I can feel like your enthusiasm about being able to accomplish this. It is really exciting. So congratulations. Erin wants to know, how did you get the error messages to apply across your entire site in React?
Katie, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So the error message is, we did for register, we had kind of, if anything were to go wrong, if you put in any invalid information, that would then pop up and say, hey, you know what, you can't do this. And that was actually restricted just to the register. However, as far as the login is concerned, we then were able to set that. So we were able to set that in the error messages. So that way, if those credentials didn't match, we used useState in order to then add that new error message. And that was then returned, as you saw at the bottom, login failed.
Rachel's wondering what your biggest challenge was while working on the front end.
I would say the biggest challenge we had on the front end was figuring out how to incorporate that user app model along with our personal user/planter model we had, and figuring out how they would work together with our fetch calls, because the user app model created tokens while the other models use those tokens. So figuring out how to get those to work in the correct order was something that took a little bit of time for us.
Edit user, we had to definitely work through that a few times to get it to finally work.
And so with our, kind of as Rachel was saying, with our tables being independent concepts with username and password, along with then all of that information, making sure that then that username and password was created, and then that planter was created, and then their profile was created, and just figuring out how all of the moving parts work together so that way it can be as pleasant and as good of an experience for the user as possible.
John wants to know, you mentioned that your system tests, and granted, you said you have almost 100% test coverage on this, resulted in very few defects to fix. What do you attribute that to?
I am so proud of the testing that we've done. I think it was absolutely incredible being able to kind of create all of those tests for specifically the data and for the domain layer of the API, and getting that kind of percentage. Having all of those kind of tests really made us feel confident going into the React side of things, that we weren't going to have any issues interacting with our database, and that all of our issues that we encounter would be focused on just React.
And going off of that, I would say that our planning in the test portion was very strong as well. We planned out almost every single test that we would write before we even started, and then we used test-driven development to make sure we were testing as we went along building the project.
I know testing is not historically a topic of enthusiasm, but I mean, it's the real world, right? It's important to be able to scale an application that you have, good, strong tests. And it's really cool to see that you guys were able to find the fun in it and the value in it, and, mention it as such a success for your team. So congratulations.